Do your watercolor paintings disappoint you? Stop blaming yourself. It's probably your paper. Imagine your watercolors flowing evenly without fuss. To learn more about this, join me at the Watercolor Paper Playoffs to learn which is the best performing paper for the money. Welcome to the International Watercolor Paper Playoffs. I'm Lynn, your host, and I'm joined tonight by award-winning watercolor artist Peggy Bishop. For the watercolor artists in the stands, why should they care? Why should a piece of paper matter? Many times, beginning artists become frustrated to the point of putting their brush down, not knowing that it's their supplies that are fighting them. We're here tonight to prove that low-quality watercolor paper can be your biggest opponent when learning as a watercolor artist. So we're not just comparing sheets, we're fighting frustration. How do we deliver this verdict? We're subjecting 4 of the most popular watercolor papers to a battery of tests. It's cotton versus cellulose, Lynn. We're going to test the papers on everything that an artist expects a watercolor paper to be able to do. That means flat washes, layering, feathering, being able to withstand removing masking fluid, lifting, and scrubbing with a magic eraser. A perfect score is 8, and each paper is going to have to fight for every half point. Oh, this is going to be incredibly insightful and exciting. The contenders: Strathmore 300, Strathmore 400, Fabriano Artistico, and Baohong. Contenders, are you ready? The first test is the flat wash. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're looking for here is evenness and intensity. I think the Strathmore 300 is having a hard time. It's just not very even looking. Being such an intense color, Indanthrone blue is the true test of intensity for our contestants. Quinacridone Deep Gold is really the first layer for our layer test that's coming up, but it is the foundation of the layer test. Therefore, we can use it to help judge how well it lays down as a flat wash. I'm really not crazy about how this looks. It looks uneven to me, and this is just a normal flat wash. I had a little bit of a backwash on the Indanthrone blue. So in addition to these washes not being very smooth, which is what a flat wash should be, they also are not very intense. And I will compare to the next one side by side. This is the Strathmore 400 series, and it's much darker. This is the Cobalt blue. Same thing for the Indanthrone blue. These washes are smoother and they're much more intense. Now, if we look at the Fabriano, it also is smoother and more intense than the Strathmore 300. Now let's switch it out a little bit. How does the Fabriano compare to the Strathmore 400? The Strathmore 400 has ended up being the surprise because the Strathmore 400 Cobalt blue wash is very smooth compared to the Fabriano, where its texture shows through. Now, for some artists that might not be a problem, and in fact might even be desirable. The flat wash with the Indanthrone blue, though, are fairly comparable. This is the Strathmore 400. This is the Fabriano. They're virtually indistinguishable. I have a little lightness here, but that could be how I applied it. So back to the Strathmore 300 versus the Baohong. Again, we see the Baohong is more intense. You can see some of the texture, though it's not that much. The Indanthrone blue is very smooth, very intense compared to the Strathmore 300. Now let's compare the Baohong to the Fabriano, which is the cotton counterpart in this comparison. Fairly similar, a little more texture on the Fabriano than the Baohong with the Cobalt blue, but with the Indanthrone blue, they're virtually identical. Here's a Strathmore 400. I would have thought the Strathmore 400 was a cotton paper with the way that it performed. That's how close these are. With 3 colors of the flat wash, the potential score is 3.0. How did our contestants do for the first test? Strathmore 300 coming in with half a point. Strathmore 400 coming in with 2.5 points. Fabriano making 3 points. And Baohong with 3 points, tying with Fabriano. And now we begin the layer test. We're layering on Winsor Violet on top of the Quinacridone Deep Gold. Winsor Violet not only is very intense, but it immediately neutralizes the Quinacridone Deep Gold, getting us closer to that dark that we seek. It looks like Strathmore 300 is lagging behind, folks. We'll just have to give it a few extra seconds. We're now concluding the layering test final step. This is to take shadow green as our third layer to get our deepest, darkest color that we can get. Review, this is Quinacridone Deep Gold, layered with Winsor Violet on top, and finally with shadow green as the third layer. And you can see the results. A little bit uneven. I didn't detect any lifting when I did this, which is good. I have seen that problem with other cellulose papers. This is Strathmore Series 400. The layering is very smooth on this paper, and I'm very pleased with the intensity and the evenness. It's not perfect, but it's very nice, and I think in a painting it would look very good. Fabriano Artistico. The paper warped when I put the second layer on, and I expected a backwash. I didn't get one. So this paint here pooled here, making a very dark color, which, since I was going for a dark color, that's, could be considered a good thing. But in the end, the warping caused an uneven color, which I find unappealing. However, when I came back with the shadow green, it's very, very dark, which if I wanted a black background, this would definitely work very well. Now for the Baohong. It also is very even, took the colors very well. I didn't have any problems with any lifting really on any of them, including the Baohong, and it looks very, very good, very dark with the 3 layers. And now for our layering scores. Strathmore 300 gaining half a point, Strathmore 400 gaining a full point, Fabriano disappointingly only half a point, and Baohong full point. And now it's time for the feathering test! One of the hallmarks of great watercolor paintings is something called lost and found edges, which is a fancy way of saying hard edges and soft edges. This test is to see if we can achieve a soft edge as well as hard edges on these watercolor papers. Well, I don't know what's going on with the artist on the Strathmore 400, but we're going to have to hurry her up. The next result is the feathering effect. This is the Strathmore 300. There's a little bristle that got into the paint. It feathered pretty well. For instance, you're painting flowers, you're going to want to feather an edge, or there may be other objects in a painting where you're not going to want a hard edge. Not super even, but pretty good. Here's the Strathmore 400, and I definitely was having an issue just applying it, but in the end I did get a nice feathered edge. Here's the Fabriano. I think that's reasonable. I would have liked a little bit better transition, something not quite as abrupt. And here's the Baohong. Again, I would have liked it to be a little less abrupt. Here are our scores for the feathering test. Strathmore 300 getting half a point. Strathmore 400 up a full point. Fabriano only half a point, and Baohong falling down with just half a point. Now we're testing masking fluid removal. Our weapon of choice is the rubber cement pickup. For the masking fluid removal, if the masking fluid comes off without tearing the paper receives full credit. If the paper tears at all, it's 0 points. All our contestants received a perfect score for the masking fluid removal. Now it's time for the lifting test. To do the lifting, I use a fairly stiff brush. This is a NicPro size 10. The idea is to dampen the brush and then take it to the paper to lift the paint. Rinse the brush, dampen it again with a towel, and repeat until you get down to the white of the paper or as far as you can go. With a non-staining color like cobalt blue, a successful lifting test will happen without the paper pilling or tearing. On a staining color like green gold, we expect that the proper result is that it won't lift well at all. We also would expect no pilling or tearing. The Strathmore 300 lifted well and didn't tear. It lifted too well. Shouldn't have lifted that much. Strathmore 400 lifted well for the cobalt blue, but the paper pilled up on the cobalt blue and on the green gold, although it didn't lift well on the green gold. Fabriano lifted very well, too well on the cobalt blue, and not as well on the green gold. And on the Baohong, the lifting was more like what I would expect on the cobalt blue, not quite to white paper, but close, and barely any lifting on the green gold. Now for our scores on lifting. Strathmore 300 getting half a point. Strathmore 400 getting nothing. Fabriano another half point, and Baohong another full point. And now the most brutal test of all, the magic eraser test. Our weapon of choice, the Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. Not surprisingly, we're seeing similar results with the magic eraser as we saw with our lifting. The lifting with the magic eraser on the Strathmore 300 is too good. It's not what we expect. On the Strathmore 400, we had pilling and tearing. Fabriano, no tearing, no pilling, but still a little bit too easy to lift, while Baohong had the proper behavior where it was difficult to lift the permanent green gold. Here are